Hello, the focus of this video will be the Passaic Public Schools UBD Science template. As you can see at the top of the UBD Science template, you have the Science Vision and the Science Mission. So all of the curriculums in Passaic Public Schools are based on UBD, Understanding by Design. Each of the UBD templates has 3 stages, which I'll discuss in a minute. For the basis of this video, I'm using the grade 1 air and weather unit, which you can see indicated here, grade level 1, and the length of the unit is 10 weeks. So I'm going to be going over in detail some of the vocabulary that you need to understand when you're looking at the UBD science template. So the first thing I want to go over is in stage 1, you'll have the priority standards. So you can see that this is 1 ESSS 1-1. So that's one of the NJSLS-S standards. And if you go further down this column, I'm not going to go down this right now, but if you go further down, you'll notice that they will also have the 21st century standards, the language arts, and the math standards as well. So to the right of that, you see this word transfer. Well, what does transfer mean? A transfer goal is supposed to stand the test of time. It is the big idea that we want to drive home in that unit. So the concept, the way that it was taught to me is that this is a concept that you want students remembering for 40 hours, 40 days, even possibly 40 years. So this is kind of the big idea that we want to drive home with the unit. Underneath that, you're noticing there's this OATG1. So this is overarching transfer goal. So the transfer goal for the unit is specific to the content of that unit. But there are also overarching transfer goals. So what are those? So overarching transfer goals, they basically come from the curriculum and aligned to the science vision mission and the also district vision and mission. So the curriculum is aligned in units based on the standards, knowledge, and evidence of learning. The units are aligned in a course to overarching science goals and the NJSLS-S standards, which I mentioned before. And all of the courses in the district are aligned to the mission, the vision, and that's generally where the overarching goals are coming from. So these overarching transfer goals are very specific to science. So for instance, the first one that matches to this unit is make informed scientific decisions that affect the quality of our lives. That's something that we're driving home, whether it be from kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade. And we're also addressing that in this particular unit. So something like designing procedures and carry out an investigation, or discern and explain interactions between systems in the natural world. These are things that we're driving home as a science department from kindergarten to 12th grade. So then we get into the transfer goal, what I discussed earlier. So transfer goal is that big idea that we want to drive home and we want the students to understand by the end of the unit. The transfer goal is directly aligned to the assessment. So when you're designing a curriculum based on UBD, you always start with what are my standards, and then from there, you develop the transfer goal, and then the assessment, which is stage 2, the next stage in the UBD template, has to be directly aligned to what you're trying to obtain in the transfer goal. So if we go further down, you'll notice that the next section of stage 1 is meaning. So what is meaning? Meaning are basically the understandings and those essential questions that the students are going to need to know in order to meet the transfer goal. So it's basically information that they need to be able to explain. So again, including in the meaning section, we also have an overarching enduring understanding. So these are things in science that they need to be able to understand and explain in science. Same thing with essential questions. So there's a general pattern or theme throughout the unit plan. You have the unit-specific enduring understandings, the overarching enduring understandings. You have the unit-specific essential questions, like you'll see here, unit-specific for each investigation, but then you also have the overarching essential questions. So as a science department, we are addressing those overarching concepts from kindergarten to 12th grade. If we go further down, you'll see that there's enduring understandings. Those are the big things that the students are going to need to be able to explain in this unit that will help them reach towards that transfer goal. As I mentioned earlier, in the left column there, that's the continuation of all the standards in addition to the NJSLS. So right now, these are the speaking and listening standards and the reading standards. So getting over now to acquisition. So what is acquisition? Acquisition is basically skills and specific knowledge that is going to be learned in the unit. Skills are aligned to science and engineering practices and cross-cutting concepts. So know is basically what are the specific pieces of information the students are going to need to know for that particular unit. And the skills is what are they going to be able to do as far as science practices or cross-cutting concepts. If we go further down, and now we get into stage 2. So again, remember the UBD template, we always start with what are the standards, what is that transfer goal, that big idea that we're trying to get across to the students, and then we have to come up with our assessment. So stage 2, here you'll see that there's various ways to assess the students. So if you're seeing here, evidence, basically evidence and how the students be able to demonstrate their learning. So you see there's a performance task. The performance task I can get into in detail in the grade specific units, but the performance task is basically that end of the unit assignment or project that the students are going to complete to demonstrate that they've met the transfer goal. And there's also a department created rubric, and there's a GRASS template, which is kind of the teacher's version, and there's a student friendly template. In addition to that, as teachers, you know that we assess in other ways, like DOLs, checking for understanding, exit slips, labs, investigations. But this performance task is something that is going need to be done as a common assessment. So everybody who teaches grade 1 science will have to have the students do the performance task. How we assess individual learning on a daily basis, that's really is up to the teacher. Now, stage 3 is a learning plan. So this is where you actually plan out the lessons. So that's basically the lessons that the students will engage in order to develop the understandings of the content and meet the expectations of the transfer goal. So remember, stage 1 is what do the students need to learn in accordance with the standards. Stage 2 is how are they going to demonstrate that at the end of the unit. And stage 3 is all the bits and pieces and all the individual lessons that the students are going to engage in order to meet that transfer goal, which is aligned to the standards, and also to meet the complete the performance assessment. So you see in stage 3, there's modifications for ELL, special ed students, advanced learning, and at-risk students. It's linked to a lot of different modifications that you can look at. There's cross-cultural connections links, and then here there's a link to each of the unit documents where you'll get more detailed information about particular activities and objectives that are aligned to that content. You'll notice in the bottom here, there is amount of white space. So white space is about how many extra days that you have allotted in this unit. And you'll see next to each of the links for the unit, there's the amount of periods that it's estimated it will take you for that particular stage of that particular investigation. Okay, I hope this lesson was helpful. Thank you.